This is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 365. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
Yeah, man. Here we are. Give you another off-season nonsense podcast. This is going to be great. There's all sorts of stuff to talk about.
365 episodes. That's one for every day. If you start now, that'll get you through until next year when the Seahawks are going to be preparing for the Super Bowl.
Exactly. So there you go. That's our gift to you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, 365 shows over the course of, well, it only took us about 10 years.
It takes some time.
It does.
Man, and speaking of the time, where does it go? I had in my Facebook memories the pictures of Super Bowl week this past week, and man, it's been 8 whole years since we got to enjoy that.
Yeah, it has been, but I guess we just had to wait 9 is all it turned out to be. So
right,
looking forward to it next year.
Calling our shot now. Here we go.
Yeah, I am calling our shot now. I actually feel pretty confident about what this next season
we still have
like.
a whole offseason to see what happens and transpires before we even have to make a prediction.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
It's just, that was a snake bit year. I think we're going to have a little better roll of the dice next year.
Okay. Well, we have a football game to preview, Adam.
We do?
Yeah, the Pro Bowl coming up this weekend.
Oh, right. Exactly.
Our quarterback is in there. He's tearing it up at the skills challenge this week.
Yeah, you sent me that video. I just watched it just before we hopped on here. And guess the finger's okay. It's not Kurt Warner's thumb.
It seems okay. So, yes, that's good news. And so that's understandable now why you're so fired up for next season.
Fired up. Yeah. I just watched Russ torch the Pro Bowl skills challenge like it was child's play.
Yeah. Just hit 3 deep balls back to back to back and then checked it down until he got the win.
Oh, well, all he had to do was hit the 3 and then he had the win. And then he hit those 3 deep balls and it was already over.
That's right.
Like, I'll win this in 3 throws. Like, so apparently Russell maybe this year is going to be looking to start a little hotter every game. That's what I took away from that.
Ooh, I would like that. You know, I've been calling for that for a while.
I know.
And this is not just unreal expectations like Richard Sherman was talking about that some fans have. And we're going to get to Sherman, but one of the reasons why Russell Wilson is in the Pro Bowl, it's because ding dong, the witch is dead. Tom Brady actually retired from the NFL. He announced it himself this time.
Yeah. I've been wondering how fast Father Time is because Brady's been outrunning Father Time's 40 for 44 years now.
Yep.
And there it is. I guess 44. That's when it finally catches up to you and you're ready to hang him up. And good for him. I'm sure he's got lots of fun things to do. And it's going to be nice not having him in the league, especially in the NFC. Can't wait for Rodgers to go to Denver. Like, get out of here.
Yep.
And yeah, we can own this for the next 5 years really easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
After the Rams lose the Super Bowl, and then they go into that tailspin that all losing Super Bowl teams do. And then it's Seahawks all the way.
All the way.
The 49ers, they get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, and Trey Lance is just never able to become the quarterback that they hoped he would be. Let's see. What else do we write into our fan fiction that we we want to see happen?
Fact? Yeah. So that, and then Kyler will continue to not be healthy any further than 8 games in any season.
Oh, I don't need to get into Kyler's health so much. It's just that Kingsbury had his one good year this year, kind of. He made it as deep as he could to get as many wins as he could. I don't think that's going to happen again.
No. Did you see that Arizona's ownership group was floating out there that they weren't going to pay their playoff bonuses to the coaches because they were so pissed off?
What?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it actually happened. I heard Pat McAfee talking about it.
That seems like probably something you couldn't and shouldn't do.
Absolutely. Just the idea that even got out, if they, let's say they actually did give them the playoff bonuses, like they should have. Just the idea that got out. How many good coaches are you going to get, beat out on in coaching free agency every year?
We get to the playoffs and you're going to somehow try and withhold those because we didn't live up to whatever expectations there were.
Right.
That's pretty shady.
It's super shady. The whole organization's shady.
There's some shady stuff going on in the NFL this week. And I want to get to that too with Brian Flores and that stuff. But You know what? Let's start off by, well, shoot. We had our YouTube live reaction video that we did earlier this week with Clinton. That went up on our Seahawks podcast YouTube page. So if you're looking for extra stuff and you're not subscribed to the YouTube page, you should definitely do that. That way you can get those when we go live. And I'm going to, I posted it after the fact to our members of the flock at getintheflock.com. But if we start doing this regularly, I want to make sure and get the word out via getintheflock.com that we're going live. That way people get notified in advance. But yeah, that's a fun thing. We're testing it out. We're trying to, see how many weeks we can go through this and see if we can get into a rhythm. It's working out so far. We've got what, 2 in the bag now?
3.
That's what I meant. I meant 3.
3 in the bag. Hey, look, as we do this going forward, because it's happening, as long as it continues to grow, we're going to continue doing it. So the homework that you guys have, not only hit subscribe, because, that's a thing, but I need you guys to go out there and share it. Send it to your Seahawks friends, all the stuff, because as we up the production quality and kind of get to where we want to be with all of that, we need to see some growth to make it worth our while in the monetary investment and the time investment. So that's the way that you can ensure that you get more of us lovely people in your life.
Yes, and we will have more topics throughout the offseason as we go on with that. But we had some football this past weekend. Satan's Championship. It was played, and it was one of those outcomes, maybe the least desirable outcome, but we knew we were in for an undesirable outcome.
Yeah, the interesting part is that I learned that I absolutely hate the Rams more than the Niners. I didn't know if that was true.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it might be true. And then the game started, and first off, I wasn't going to watch it. And then as game time approached, I was like, maybe I'll click it on. And so I did. And then I watched the first 5 possessions of absolute inept quarterback play with Stafford and Jimmy G just airmailing things. Then watched the rest of the game as Jimmy G tried to kill Deebo Samuels because apparently he owes him money, or who knows? I don't know. Maybe he slept with his mom. It's hard telling, not knowing. All I'm saying is that Jimmy play well.
Was trying to get one of his receivers killed on the field, and it almost happened. And it wasn't fun to watch.
Right. And as the game unfolded and it folded in, I sat and watched, and it progressed. I got more and more frustrated every time the Rams were doing something well, and found myself hoping something good would happen to the Niners. And
it was good things were happening. They were up by 10 points going into the fourth quarter. We were thinking, okay, here it is. This is the 49ers that we know, always just having Sean McVay's number. And you thought with that 49ers defense and their, just ability to run the football, that would get them by the Rams in the fourth quarter. And I'm a little bit surprised that they folded in that way.
Well, it all boiled down to that 4th and 2. I mean, that really was kind of the ball game. Everything changed right there. I mean, you had to be yelling at the screen too.
Well, I just not even the 4th and 2, but 2nd and 1, and then 3rd and 2. And then, when they decided not to go for it on 4th and 2, how does Shanahan not have any trust in his defense in that moment, or trust in his running game to actually get it? I know it didn't get there on the last 2 tries, but they got 9 yards on first down. Maybe try an outside run after having 2 failed inside runs, or I don't know. It just, I was disappointed in that moment that they chose not to go for it.
How about get the ball to Kittle in that situation, that 4th and 2 play? Do your fake run thing where you slip Kittle out the backside after a delayed block. They run that play all the time.
They didn't use Kittle nearly enough against the Rams.
No.
It was Debo and more Debo.
More Debo.
And then trying to get Debo killed, and then more Debo.
And then more Debo. Yeah. Unbelievable. And not only that, but Ayuk was open a lot on those deep crossers, which that's a throw Jimmy can make, 8 times out of 10, which is good for him.
Yeah.
And
up 10. Yeah. It wasn't until he was put in that really tough spot of having to drive the field at the end of the game that he made that game-ending interception. So
Right.
it wasn't even really, I don't even know if I can put the loss on Jimmy at that point, because I mean, dude was
Should
trying
never
to
be
make
there.
a play, the offensive line, Aaron Donald did Aaron Donald things at the end of the game. It can't come down to that. You needed to put that game away sooner.
Absolutely. And it was there for the taking. If you're a Niners fan, I mean, first off, you need to, check your life priorities and everything, because you've made some poor decisions clearly, but you should be pretty upset at the way that game went down. And I mean, I don't know, maybe you're not. Maybe that means that Jimmy G moves on for sure now, and you're happy about that. I have no idea. It's hard to get inside the head of a Niners fan. It's messed up.
I think some Niners fans are content, at least, with how the season went, because if you go back toward middle of the season, they had a losing record. It wasn't looking good for them, and they were able to rally and make it to the NFC Championship game. I don't think that they expected to be in that position, especially at the middle of the season.
No, and honestly, as a Seahawks fan, isn't that what you expected out of the Hawks going down the stretch?
Yeah, I watched these two teams in the NFC Championship, and I thought, yeah, our team could hang with these two teams.
100% beatable.
Well, and I know that we beat the Niners twice.
Yeah, 100% beatable. And it was just frustrating. The whole playoffs from the NFC side of things, I didn't watch one game where I didn't think, oh my goodness, like if we had just gotten in, we're at least a win or two in the playoffs for sure, with the way they had found the run game and all that stuff. But maybe with Diggs getting injured in the last game, it wouldn't have gone well. It's hard to say, but still very frustrating to watch. And now we've got Satan's Super Bowl. So that's fun.
It's not necessary. Well, okay. I guess in the sense that the Chiefs didn't make it.
Yeah.
And they were probably the better hope for beating the Rams.
Yeah.
I still have some hope that the Bengals can get it done. Their defense is opportunistic. They're able to put some pressure. They were able to put enough pressure on Mahomes to shoot through that entire second half that made him look mortal.
Yeah.
Almost made him look Jimmy G-ish.
Yeah, a little bit. Now, the Bengals do have a good running game, and they're able to actually pound the rock pretty well. Mixon's a decent back. And then if there's anybody right now who has the moxie, the courage, the unflappableness, because that's a word now, to take down the Rams in a close game going down the stretch, I believe in Burrow. He's just one of those guys.
I know you didn't watch the game in full, but did you see the play did you see any of the highlights? Because he had this one moment where I'm pretty sure it was Chris Jones who had him just for a sack late in the game, and he was able to sneak out of it. It was a magical, like, Russ type play. And I know everybody's saying, oh, well, the Bengals offensive line, they struggled so much with the Titans that, and then they even struggled a little bit with the Chiefs, and they're not going to have any chance against that Rams defensive line. Well, they've got through these last couple defensive lines, and they've been able to come away with a victory. So I kind of think that between Burrow and between the run game, there might still be a little bit of magic left there.
It's possible. What concerns me is a lot of their offense, especially through the air, is all Jamar Chase. And while a special talent and a very good receiver, it does worry me that the Rams can just be like, okay, Ramsey, you just follow him wherever he goes and take him out.
I don't know if Burrow's going to be scared of that. I think Jamar's pretty good. Also, I think T. Higgins is pretty good. And so
he's all right.
Just like, you didn't necessarily see Debo get taken away by Ramsey the entire game. They found ways to get him the football. So I think the Bengals I think they're going to make this a game.
I don't think it's going to be a blowout one way or the other.
And besides, the Rams have shown us what their MO is. They get out to a quick lead, and then McVay takes his foot off the gas and then allows the team back in it. If that happens again, we've seen from the Bengals that's something that they've taken advantage of every single week.
Absolutely. It's been their MO this year. And this Rams team is not the super team juggernaut that everybody kind of prognosticated they'd be at the beginning of the season from the national media perspective. I mean, we did talk about Stafford being an upgrade this offseason, and he has been, and he's stayed healthier than I thought he ever could. That's for sure. But he still manages to have that one gift-wrapped football for the defense each and every game to turn things around. He gave one to the Niners.
And they didn't take it. They didn't take it.
So,
Tart has to be kicking himself after missing that INT.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he is. I mean, he took accountability for it, but gosh, I mean, how do you miss that play?
I don't know.
It was right to him.
Heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah. Heartbreaking for me as a, 2-hour 49ers fan.
Right.
As it turned out to be.
Which was an hour and 59 minutes too long.
Oh, it was gross.
It was bad. But here we are. And it turns out, I guess I'm going to be down in the LA area that weekend. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh, well, say hi to all the Bengals fans down there.
No, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, because that's all there's going to be.
Hey, man, that's a true fact.
Bengals fans and front runners who just want to go to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Yeah. That whole Niners takeover of the LA stadium was hilarious.
How does that happen? I mean, besides from not having any fans that actually want to go to the game.
Yeah, that's the real issue there.
Right.
Like, yeah, if you, I don't know, move your team 73 times chasing the money throughout its history and then like pop back into a city that really doesn't give a rat's about anything other than Lakers, and they only care about the Lakers when they're winning. Good luck. Just good luck.
Yeah, there probably are more 49ers fans who live in LA than any other team.
With the Raiders gone?
And maybe LA, I mean, Vegas is still pretty close to LA, so there's probably between Raiders and Niners, that's probably the majority of your NFL fan base in LA.
Yeah, sprinkle in a few Chargers fans that exist, and there you go. But it's tough. It's really gross seeing the NFL get exactly what they wanted, schemed, and plotted for all year. It's just, it makes me sick to my stomach.
Yes, they got it. Will they be able to finish it off?
I mean, we have seen that different entities around the league definitely don't have a problem either bending the rules or just going antithetical to the whole spirit of the game of football. And yeah. I was thinking we'd get into the Richard Sherman talk, but we can talk about this now because, I was kind of excited about the idea that, maybe Brian Flores could be a Seahawks defensive coordinator. It maybe what happened this week makes it more likely, but the fact that he filed a lawsuit against the NFL. Now, I hear a lot of people equating Brian Flores with Colin Kaepernick in terms of suing the NFL, which I don't equate those things at all, because they were saying, well, now that Brian Flores has sued the NFL, he's going to be just like Kaepernick and he's never going to get an NFL head coaching job. I don't think that it was just the suing the NFL that kept Kaepernick from getting a gig. No. In the end, it seemed as if Kaepernick was more devoted to his cause, which that's all fine and dandy. I'm cool with it, than playing football. Like that's kind of where that ended up, and that's okay. And I think it's an honorable decision, and I won't pan him. But I can promise you, Flores wants another job here. But it also kind of shows a little bit of his personality too. I mean, I respect the fact that he's like, look at this nonsense. Look at it. I respect that. I do. The other part of me is like, you couldn't have done this a little more quietly? Or maybe he tried.
And maybe he did try. And maybe it's to the point of frustration. And you go back and it sounds like it was something that he dealt with when he interviewed with the Denver Broncos head coaching job, is that he didn't feel like when ownership showed up to interview him an hour late that they were taking it seriously. And it sounded like, maybe they were a little bit tipsy. And so already he had that moment where he's like, man, that the way this is set up with the Rooney Rule, yes, it's given more opportunities for black and minority head coaches to get the interviews, but we've seen it's not really resulting in, I think, the kind of results that they expected the rule to create and to have. There's so few black and minority head coaches in the league right now, comparatively.
I mean, in terms of percentage of population, though, or even, I don't know. It does.
I'm thinking in terms of the guys who are players and go on to coach. I think more of that percentage as opposed to the percentage within the population as a whole, I guess.
Right. Well, I guess of the African American coaches, how many of them played? Almost all of them, right?
I would think so.
Right. And out of the white dudes,
I think most of the head coaches even.
Yeah,
there's very few that don't play.
Well, most of the white head coaches most of them didn't play in the NFL.
Not in the NFL, but in college. I mean,
yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, then at that point, I guess pretty much everybody that's in the NFL played at some point, quote unquote.
I don't know. I can almost guarantee you that the offensive coordinator in San Francisco, that dude never played football outside of maybe high school or middle school.
Well, the Broncos' new coach, Hackett, I don't think he played. He just grew up in coaching. And you see a lot of that too. You know,
sure.
I mean, just Shanahan's are a good example of that.
Okay, so, the Flores had the experience with Denver, and then he goes and he gets the job with Miami. And then, so part of the allegation is that he was being incentivized to tank, essentially.
Yeah.
That they were offering bonus money to lose. And you could tell, like, that is not something that he's into. Well, shoot, most of the head coaches, that's not something they're into. I heard Mike Holmgren on the radio talking about that. And he was in Cleveland, where apparently Hugh Jackson was incentivized to lose. Yeah, Holmgren was just, I mean, he's no way. He's like, if any people would just know not to ask because there's no way that's happening.
Right.
I mean, it's troubling to even hear that that's something that goes on. Now, I know as fans, it's something that fans are usually calling for, suck for luck back in the day with Indy. They had the tank for Tua. And, well, maybe they wanted to tank for Burrow, who knows? But it was, the fans get into that sort of thing. And so I'm sure as ownership, you may want that to happen. But to incentivize it to happen, especially, with the whole gambling stuff going on, that seems a little dirty.
It is a little dirty. When I found out about it, I wasn't surprised. It wasn't something I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way. I can't believe that happened. Like that didn't shock me. I'll put it to you that way. Now, you can blame the Philadelphia 76ers for this. Like when they started the process back in the day. And,
when was this?
Oh, this was about the last 10 years. Like they've had 3 good years here, but they tanked year after year after year to get number 1 picks. And they picked Fultz and Embiid and Simmons and just trying to build a superstar-laden team with a bunch of draft picks, right? And it didn't work out. It's so much so to where Joel Embiid has been nicknamed the process. Like it was a huge debate among NBA circles and something and the Sixers were like, yeah, this is what we're doing. So, and there's not a lot.
Well, it sounded like with Hugh Jackson in Cleveland, they had all those analytical guys up there, and it sounded like it was a 4-year plan. Now, the other troubling part of that is if, one, you're hiring minority coaches into these positions, and then you're asking them to tank for 2-3 years, and then you fire them after 2-3 years because you tanked, that's not doing anything good for the NFL.
Or in Flores' case, anti-tanked. Like actually made them very competitive with a roster that they were trying to put together in order to tank.
Right.
I mean, imagine if he had an ownership group behind him that, I don't know, wanted to win.
It makes what he did that much more impressive, right?
It really does.
And so you have and that's the thing that it kind of, well, for one, you respect that he has that kind of will. Mm-hmm. It kind of makes me, you talk about having someone that would be willing to challenge Pete. Yeah, that guy's willing to challenge anybody. Now, the thing, hearing him in some of the talk shows, I do wonder, though, if coaching might be kind of outside of his plan then for the coming season, if this is something that he wants to take on and devote time to.
I guess it depends on how long the NFL lets us fester. And I guess my prediction would be this gets cleaned up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would think that this is not something that they really want to get into.
No, especially heading into an offseason. Like, this could dominate offseason talk for months. You get this buried and under wraps as soon as possible if you're the NFL. I mean, that's what Dirty Goodell would do.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then what else are you doing if you're Flores?
Well, then, I mean, does he get enough of a settlement to where he's like, well, I don't need to coach in the NFL anymore?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that guy. He definitely doesn't have that competitive desire to want to just coach for the sake of coaching. Definitely not him.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, what else is he going to do?
Well, I mean, there's college football. There's other places to coach. I just wonder if it results in the kind of frustration to where he'd say, screw you guys, or if he wouldn't want to go back to being a coordinator. He's obviously shown that he has the ability as a head coach.
Oh, sure. If I'm him, there's none of these head coaching positions that are still available that I'm interested in at all. What are you going to go do? Coach the Texans with another nightmare ownership group?
Yeah.
With a former owner that got pushed out because he was at least medium racist?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're not going there.
And you know what? With the whole tanking stuff going on, the discussion, it kind of makes me wonder if that's what Culley was brought in to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I hadn't thought about it in the terms of, often when you see this happen, they often bring in a minority head coach for that situation. I'd never connected those dots.
I didn't either until Jackson came out and talked about it. I hope that's not.
That's extra gross if that's the way that goes.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're Byron Leftwich, are you a little nervous now?
He's trying to get a GM that he can actually count on in Jacksonville, it sounds like, and they're not wanting to pull the trigger on that.
Right.
So I think that's probably smart on his behalf.
Yeah, I would definitely pound the table for a competent GM to partner up with. I mean, geez Louise, go out and get Mayock.
Well, it sounds like he's buddies with Adrian Wilson in the Cardinals scouting department.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you want to overdraft the wrong players, then go grab somebody from the Cardinals organization. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Are there any?
And then when you don't make the playoffs, the GM might just decide not to give out the coaches bonuses.
Yeah. I would like to see Leftwich, if he's going to take a coaching job. I just think it's smart as a head coach, especially with some of the things that we've seen with Hugh Jackson and then Brian Flores, to get a general manager that you are, on the same page with. You see most teams have success when they have their coach and general manager on the same page anyway.
Absolutely. It's one of the bedrock foundations of having a successful football team. And then you see the other way of empowering your head coach to be the GM as well, and how much that never works out. So yes, you have to have that pairing of, a personnel guy and a coach that see the football world at least through the same shade of rose-colored glasses.
Unless you're Bill Belichick.
Right. Again, exception to the rule. But even then, I mean, is his GMing exceptional?
Unless you're Bill Belichick and you draft Tom Brady, a generational quarterback, an all-timer.
Yeah. And then also playing in a division with one franchise that is completely inept, one that apparently doesn't care to win, and then a Buffalo team that couldn't get its poop in a group for, better part of a decade.
Yeah.
That surely helps.
Probably 2 decades, right?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of teams that have been good for a couple decades, our Seattle Seahawks, Richard Sherman, he was on that team, and he did a podcast here recently with Cliff Avril, and man, he went on quite a rant talking about how Seahawks fans hate accountability, for one. He offered his thoughts on let Russ cook and talked about Pete Carroll and his thoughts on his coaching ability. And I do want to go through a lot of these quotes from Sherman because, man, he dropped a lot.
All right.
I think the first few they might upset some of you, but I think there's also some important things for us to hear. And so, yes, as we go through these in order, keep in mind that some of these, they're going to upset you. Some of these are him making a lot of sense. And then there's others that maybe need to be challenged a little bit. So,
was that a trigger warning?
I'm offering a trigger warning because Richard Sherman he's one of our guys.
Yeah.
I still love Sherm.
Oh, yeah, forever.
Okay.
And always. Yeah.
Good. Because, we can still, show the love, but then say, hey, I don't like this very much.
Right.
I want to be clear.
Yeah. I don't have to agree with everything that comes out of Richard Sherman's mouth to enjoy the personality.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the first things that he talked about is he went on the offense, defense, talking about how the Seahawks are going to be in rebuild mode if they cut Bobby Wagner.
I think at the end of the day, and Seattle fans are going to hate to hear this because it's just they hate accountability these days. But they're probably going to get rid of Bobby, and once you do that, that's it. That's it. You're in rebuild. I don't care if Russell's there or not there. You're in rebuild mode if Bobby Wagner is not there. And people are like, man, we got to, because you either die the hero, or you live long enough to become the villain.
Well, what does he mean that Seahawks fans hate accountability with regard to not bringing back Bobby?
Yeah, I don't quite understand. Maybe accountability wasn't the word he was looking for, because wouldn't accountability in this case be that Bobby's play has suffered a crap ton, and then all the Seahawks fans are like, no, don't cut him. And then so you don't hold him accountable for his play. But that's not true. He's still balling out. So I just, that statement doesn't make
it was confusing
a ton of sense to me. Although I will agree with him, it is not time to part ways with Wags. It's just not. And I know people look at the cap number and all that. Restructure his deal for another 2 years, rearrange the money. The cap is magic, like whatever.
Yeah, you want to keep around your players who have really helped build the franchise. I think, Sherman is, he feels like he should have been one of those guys too. And I think we'll hear from him how he still maybe holds a little bit of a grudge on that. But I do think, Bobby's one of those guys you do it for. Now, I also don't know if it means necessarily that the Seahawks are in full-on rebuild mode if they were to cut Bobby.
I think it is a massive hit to the culture of your locker room. That's one of the things that people don't take into proper consideration when they are thinking about moving guys because of cap numbers and things like that.
Right.
It's like, okay, sure. Is he a half a step slower than he was 10 years ago? Yeah, probably. But he's also 14 times smarter because he's seen everything under the sun that an offense does. Still a tackling machine, still the heart and soul of that defense, a major leader in the locker room, and a guy that gets your young guys set up for success. I mean, just look at Jordan Brooks.
When you have a guy who is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, which Bobby Wagner's going to be, those are the guys that you take care of for as long as they're able to step out on the football field, pretty much.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, unless you start to get, close to that JJ Watt end of your career, like you see guys bounce for a year or two at the end of their careers quite a bit, even the all-time greats. I mean, shoot, we just watched Brady do it. But with that said, I think
Brady partly wanted to.
Yeah, I think he was ready. Have some fun in Florida.
So yeah, there were some questionable things there, but I think he was trying to make a point. He was also making the point that us Seahawks fans, we got spoiled by a historic defense.
These fans had never won anything before we got here. Yeah, they had never won anything. They went to the Super Bowl in 2006 and we're happy to be there. Yeah, and that was their biggest claim. And then we get there, we win the Super Bowl, we spoil them with historic defense, and then all of a sudden that's their expectation. Now their expectation is we're going to the Super Bowl every year. Like y'all have only been to 3 in the history of your organization. Franchise, yeah. Now you're going every year. No, but you can't appreciate that because now people are saying, let's get rid of Bobby. He costs too much money. So there is no guarantee you're going to keep them. There's no guarantee Bobby stays.
Yeah, we were spoiled by historic defense. You know what? We were also spoiled by a really good offensive line 15 years ago. And you know what? Mm-hmm. Those of us who were around for that, we still have those same high expectations as when we had 2 all-time Hall of Famers on the offensive line. So yeah, that happens to fans. And when you see what greatness looks like, it's not that you expect it, it's that you know what it looks like. And so now you know what you want.
Well, talk about accountability. So what, as fans with this current era of Seahawks football, we're supposed to just lower the bar and just be happy with making the playoffs every year? Or, just being not a bottom feeder? What, we're not allowed to watch the game and be like, I wish they'd really do this better. And I think they could do that better because I've seen it done better. So I know it's possible to do those things better. Talk about accountability. I mean, why can't we hold the players accountable to their level of play? And why wouldn't you want your fan base to hope that you guys strive for greatness?
I was going to go in order, but because you brought that up, this is the thing that I think Seahawks fans should have a problem with. Sherman says we should lower our Super Bowl expectations, and not just lower them substantially.
They've won one playoff game since 2017. Like, you got to start to look internally at that point. Like, you got to stop. The fans got to stop like having these weird expectations where you're thinking, oh, this is just easy. Like, you have had, like, that ring of honor is going to be filled with players from those teams.
Yeah.
And to think that you can just replace and go on and think, oh, the Super Bowl should still be the expectation. No, it should not. You should lower your expectation substantially.
Yeah. Let me be the antithesis of what it means to be a fan.
Right.
Let me do that. I don't understand that for the life of me. And as a player,
do you not have those expectations?
You don't feel like you have the horses? Do you just lower your expectations and roll through a season? Because that's not what I've been told.
Maybe the point that he was trying to make, and maybe he made it in another one of these clips, is that it's really hard, for one thing, to make a Super Bowl. Through all the years that he's been in,
yes.
He knows how tough it is. He knows that how tough it is to win once you do get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yes, he was on some historically great teams in Seattle, and they still only won one.
Yeah. And I don't expect them to be the Patriots and win one about every 3 years, right?
No, I want that, but I don't know if I expect that.
Exactly. I would very much like that. Yes, please. But yes, it's very, very difficult. And things have to line up for you in 1,000 ways. And it rarely does. No doubt about it. But that doesn't mean that next year, looking at this team with a few tweaks and maybe just having a little better luck of the draw, that this team could be right there. Why are they that much worse than the Bengals?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
So I could see them being among these teams at the end. And just as the Bengals were able to beat just about anybody, just as the Rams, he even talked about how the Rams aren't this great team and how he used the term we. He said, we almost beat them. And he's referring to we as in Tampa, because he was in Tampa with Brady this year, and saying how if they wouldn't have been so aggressive as a team, that Tampa would have beat the Rams.
No, I think it was in play. There's no doubt about it. The Rams aren't that great of a team. What is he so salty about with the Seattle fans? Like, are there a handful on like Twitter who have been giving him a hard time? Like when he went through that situation this last offseason where it looked like maybe he was struggling with some mental health issues there for a second. How many of us, all of us as Seattle fans, were like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah,
what's going on with him? Is he okay? Does he need help? Like, I hope he does better. Like, I'm very worried.
Yeah, I think he still holds some animosity around leaving, around not keeping that core group together for longer. And I think he talks about it here when he's talking about being careful what you wish for when you're asking for star players like Bobby Wagner to get cut.
When people start to talk like that, and then you get what you wanted, because they were talking about get rid of us. And they were like, we got replacements. We got LOB 2.0. And then you got rid of us. And then you realize you don't. You realize we were once in a generation type talent, and you should have kept it and appreciated when you had it.
His version of what happened to the LOB, I think, is different from how I remember it.
You mean with facts that it wasn't that Seattle just blew up the LOB? It's that Earl Thomas's leg blew up twice. Cam Chancellor's neck blew up, and then Sherman's knee and Achilles blew up.
Yeah, in reverse order. It was Sherman that went first with his Achilles, and then it was the last game of the season that Cam hurt his neck. And then it was the following year when it was just Earl. Well, they had traded away Sherman. Now, I don't know if he thinks that, they should have rolled things back with Sherman coming back that next year, given Earl a contract long term, and, kept as much of that, and maybe Michael Bennett, kept him in the mix.
Hindsight, And in fact, at the time, I wanted to bring Sherman back.
Oh, yeah.
From after that injury. And as far as giving Earl another long-term deal, again, in hindsight, that would have blown up in your face.
I wonder if things would have been a little bit.
But wasn't it Earl Thomas who was walking around the hallway after a Dallas game saying, come get me,
right? Yeah.
Come on, man.
I know it would have been great. I'm with you. I think you and I were both talking about how we wanted Sherman to stick around even with the Achilles injury. But I'm sure there were plenty of fans saying that it was time to move on. So,
oh, sure.
It just depends on who you listen to.
Yeah. There's a lot of fans, especially in today's day and age, and maybe this is what he's speaking to. Their patience level is so low, and they expect that immediate gratification of awesomeness all the time. And maybe that's what he's kind of getting at here. And because I do think that, especially Seahawks Twitter, their expectations and wants and suggestions, it's either it's a Super Bowl or you blow it all up.
It can be that. Well, and his discussion around NFL fans as a whole, it wasn't restricted to just Seahawks fans. So we're not talking about Sherman just going off on Seahawks fans. I don't have the clip here, but he was talking about how 49ers fans given such a hard time to Jimmy Garoppolo and that sort of thing too. And he was defending Jimmy. So I think he's defending his teammates. So yes, it's not just about the Seahawks, and he was kind of going after fans as a whole. And I think some of the people are going to take it as a knock on Russ because he offered some commentary behind the idea of let Russ cook, right? I don't think this was a knock on Russ. I think he was just pointing out that it's not good strategy with regard to football.
And people were like, let Russ cook. You did not win a Super Bowl letting Russ cook. You have not been anywhere close to a Super Bowl letting Russ cook. You will not be close to a Super Bowl if you let him throw it 30, 40 times a game, because not only are you're stopping the clock. Yeah. So your defense, your time of possession, your propensity to turn the ball over is going to increase. Your defense is going to be out there longer, so they're going to be more tired. They're not going to be as effective. And unless you got some Hall of Fame, like all pro players, they're not going to be able to stand up. You're going to be in shootouts.
And so he's talking about all pro players on defense. Yeah, I don't think there's anything there, issues with Russ wise.
Oh, absolutely not. I would say my response to Sherman there would be ding. Yeah, you need to be able to run the football, control the ball a little bit, play good defense. You need to do all that. And yeah, I think that he has a legitimate point that a lot of fans, not just Seattle fans, but NFL fans, all they want to see is big offense all the time. And if you're not scoring 40 a game, then what are you doing?
Well, he is clearly on the side of the formula of winning football games is about running the football. He talks about the identity of not just a Pete Carroll team, but a championship team.
The identity of a Pete Carroll and a championship team, as it always has been, is run the ball, limit the turnovers, play solid defense. The best defense is a good run game. You run the clock. You spend less time on the field. You get stops when you need them. That's what they were doing at the end. That's what their formula was. That's how they won those games at the end. That's how they beat Arizona. Rashad Penny was, I forget, I can't name him exactly, but I think his rushing stats were like 190, 179, 160, in the last couple games. And of course they won those games.
And the thing is, I think how we got to let Russ cook in the first place anyway is because it was going down to those last minute moments to where you put Russ out on the field. And, speaking of things that fans kind of got spoiled by, we got spoiled by Russ being able to come back almost every single time that he was down in the fourth quarter. And this year, the pendulum swung back the other direction. So the thing is, Russ isn't going to be able to get every fourth quarter comeback. We started to count on it, but it's much better when you can just close out a team when you have the lead and you can hammer the rock in the fourth quarter.
Oh, for sure. I was annoyed by the let Russ cook thing from the jump. So I think it's failed strategy, just like Sherman has talked about here. Now, if you do play the style of football that Sherman just described, you're going to end up in a lot of tight games down the stretch. Now, whether that means you're up 3 or you're down 4, that was kind of the thing, is that you weren't ever getting blown out. It's not like you usually needed 3 scores to make that comeback. It was usually, all right, we just need one drive. And that shouldn't be too much to ask of your franchise quarterback to do on the semi-regular. And yeah, we were spoiled to a degree that it happened a little more often than maybe it should have. But with that said, that's exactly why you have a franchise quarterback, is for those moments. And ask Niners fans. Ask Niners fans. They just lived it.
They did.
What happens when you don't have that guy?
No, and you saw with both the Chiefs against the Bills, well, from both quarterbacks in that sense in that game, and then with Burrow. I mean, Burrow showed he can be that guy.
And that's the difference between the great quarterbacks and the very good ones. That's why Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins.
The next greatest NFC quarterback once Aaron Rodgers leaves the
right. Yeah.
The NFC.
Yeah, he's definitely next man up in that conversation.
Well, you can tell, though, that Richard Sherman does have an affinity for Pete Carroll because he was defensive of Pete as well. And, you know, there's guys out there. Gosh, I was listening to Cassius Marsh on a stream here this week. Not a fan of Pete Carroll and John Schneider, as it turns out.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Really?
He's like, I will never go back to Seattle to play as long as those guys are there. I think that was his quote. So, yeah, it was.
Okay.
He was not happy with. And maybe that had to do with being traded the way he was, too. I think that can have an impact on guys. I don't know. What did he
play better?
Sneaky Pete, I think, is the nickname that he had for Pete.
Whatever, dude. Play better. And then he won't get traded like that. Where has he had a huge impact?
Hey, he is self-deprecating enough to not think that he's some great player. So I don't think he was necessarily getting at that. But my point is, though, is that some people don't like Pete. Some people like Pete. And Sherman's one of those guys that I think is in Pete's corner.
And I don't think they truly understand what it was like before. I don't think they remember because it's been a decade of greatness. It's been a decade of winning, of a culture change. And now they're like, get rid of Pete. Like, we're tired of his predictable. We're tired of the gum chewing. We're tired of this. I said, well, guess what? He leave, you're going to be tired of losing.
Now, Sherman's wrong here. He is wrong because it's not a decade of greatness. It's been 2 decades of greatness. You know, just because he won 1 Super Bowl, it doesn't mean that the decade before wasn't great. It kind of contradictory to say fans should lower their expectations, but then not even give credit to the Holmgren era of Seahawks football being great.
Well, there were 2 years in between there. That
one year of Mora, but yes, 1 bad year of
Well, the first year,
Holmgren.
Pete wasn't amazing. I mean, I guess he got Beastquake, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't like they were
transition year.
Exactly. So yeah, it took a minute. And then the Tavares Jackson year, maybe 3 years, but whatever, man. To Sherman's point, yes, I say this all the time. Get rid of Pete. Okay, who you got that's better? Like, legitimately, who you got that's better? And are there things about Pete that annoy me? Absolutely. In some of the predictability, like it's 4th and 2 on the opponent's
48,
49.
Here comes Michael Dixon.
Yeah, that stuff drives me crazy. 100%. But with that said, if I take everything on balance as somebody who can look at the big picture from 10,000 feet, I would much rather have sustained success as we have had, which again, isn't easy, than to just throw Pete overboard because you're sick and tired of a winning formula. Sorry.
Yeah. So what does Sherman think happens if the Seahawks were to get rid of Pete Carroll?
If change comes, guess what?
Oh, my God.
Old stuff has to happen in order for you to get back to the top.
Oh,
so are you really ready for that?
Oh, my God. You talk about the rebuild. They get rid of Pete Carroll. Good luck. I don't give a damn. Good luck. Good luck. Because then you're going to be sitting there. Like, everything is an excuse. Like, they've been saying it's the offensive coordinator since Bevel was there.
And he goes on to talk about how, Shoddy got fired after having such a great offensive season statistically with the offense. And yeah, it's been kind of interesting just to see how many players have been coming out in defense of Pete, whether it was Matt Hasselbeck, now Sherman, and you hear Cliff Avril, KJ Wright, a lot of these guys, they're like, yeah, you don't want to get rid of the coach that you have. And these are guys that have been other places.
And look, here's the thing. Everything that has a beginning has an end. There will be change someday.
Yeah.
We will be moving on from Pete Carroll. That is a fact. Like that is happening at some point. And it's about timing. When is the time right? Is it now? Was it 3 years ago? Is it 3 years from now? Like, I think everybody knows how I kind of feel about it. I know how a lot of other people feel about it. But at some point, yes, Pete is going to go. And yes, it's going to be a bit of a rebuild. That's just the way the world works. Yeah, but to run Pete out of town, I think is what Sherman's point is, before he is really run his full course, would be unwise.
I mean, there might be a point a couple years down the road where we look at it and say, yeah, maybe Pete should have moved on sooner and Russ could have had an opportunity with another coach for longer. Who knows? But I suppose we don't have a whole lot of control over that either.
No, and I don't think that's the way that it's going to feel. I have a feeling Pete's going to leave before the majority of us are ready for him to leave, because I genuinely believe this next year is going to be a good year. and the reason I think that too is because it's kind of the way the cycle of things always goes. Like, fans are always, they missed playoffs. Get rid of Pete. Catfish him, hate him, can't stand him. He's old. Can't stand old people. They smell weird. Get him out of here. Like, just want Pete gone. And then the end of next year, this time next year, I almost want to bookmark this what we're saying right now in this podcast and play it back next year at this time. Because I have a feeling, whether or not we're in the Super Bowl, that's one thing, but we're going to look at that year, this next year, and be like, damn, I'm really glad we didn't get rid of Pete, because look, we really were that close to contending.
Well, I'll try and make a note.
Yeah.
Or maybe one of our listeners can.
One of the
See, our listeners
hold
us accountable. And
I love it.
Yeah. They should.
And the thing is I like putting that stuff out there because I'm generally right. So you're welcome.
I know. Adam hit me up the other day. He's like, hey, where's my list of quarterbacks when I was talking about the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen draft? Because I want to go back and listen to how right I was about Josh Allen.
No. What I couldn't remember was the exact order I had him in. Okay. I did know that I was really right about Allen. And I couldn't remember how much I liked Darnold and how much I liked Jackson. That was I remembered I couldn't stand Baker.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of curious, like, what that was. And basically I said Baker's like Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, yeah. Mahomes wasn't in that year.
No. He wasn't in that year. But the one guy I had a huge whiff on was I had Mason Rudolph a little too high there.
Okay.
I thought he could be a serviceable starter is what my prediction was.
And he
cannot.
He's full on backup.
Oh, barely. He's a bad backup.
You can't be right.
I take 3 Genos before I take Mason Rudolph.
Yeah. All right. What do you say we get to the second half of the show?
I'm ready, man.
All right. So now that we've had some time to digest that Sherman conversation a little bit, are there any main takeaways that maybe you didn't hit on or that you got out of that? Did he burn any bridges with any of his comments there?
Not with me.
Okay.
I think he's a little extra frustrated with fans. And also, too, like, I always, when I think he's talking about fans, I think he's talking about me as a fan. Not like me personally, but
he's talking about Twitter fans.
Right. And then when I think about like most fans at large, I mean, nobody that listens to this podcast, you wouldn't listen to this podcast if you weren't a smart fan. Like that's clear, especially the little flockers. I mean, they're all top notch. We may disagree on things, but they're all top notch.
We have an understanding that it's okay to disagree and we can have a discussion about it.
It's awesome to disagree. It makes it interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
But with that said, when you look at the drivel that comes out of the overall NFL media that is produced for the average fan, they must be just dumb as catfish.
Yeah. And you know what? And I think probably as a player, you don't think about the best fans. It's just like they don't think about the best moments of their career either. They think about those plays where they could have done something different. So it's probably the worst fans that dig at them the most. And so that's really where a lot of that frustration probably comes from. And, it's probably the ones playing fantasy football and are tweeting at them.
I was just going to say, you bum, you screwed up my fantasy football team. Bloobity blah.
Especially the guys on offense. So maybe Sherman doesn't get that as much as some of the other guys, but definitely guys like Rashad Penny, I could see.
Yeah.
really hating that crap. Doug Baldwin.
Yeah.
What would Doug Baldwin do if you came up complaining about how he hurt your fantasy team? I can't see that going well.
You would get the angry Doug Baldwin glare.
Right.
And then you would shut the hell up.
You should just know not to go there.
That is a man I'd never want to tangle with, ever, ever, ever.
No.
And I think I've got him by like 5 inches.
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
And
5.
he would destroy me with his left pinky toe only. His catfish up toes.
Are his toes messed up?
Yeah, don't you remember that? They were showing it like in the locker room. Somebody had a camera. They were showing his feet. He's like, don't show my feet.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. Was that one of those Real Rob Report things?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, looking at other NFL news, Washington football team is no more. It's the Washington Commanders.
Boo.
The funniest thing I saw, did you see that Bleacher Report video that was going around?
No.
Where it was, they did this cartoon version of Dan Snyder and the renaming of the football team. And one of the fans at the end of the video has Go Commie Hogs for his sweatshirt.
Yeah. I heard McAfee talking about it. He's like, they're all going to call them the commies. Like, that's it. And yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
So instead of the derogatory name that they had originally, now they're just going to be the Red Commies.
And it's going to be derogatory toward them. Rather, yeah, it's an interesting way to turn the table, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess that's better for society. Yeah, just it's a lame name. Like the Commanders.
Yeah. Admirals would have been better.
Admirals would have been far better. And I still didn't really care for that. Like Red Tails was kind of cool.
And I guess they couldn't get that one. Red Hogs. I don't know. Could they not get that one?
Yeah, they should have gone that direction.
Yeah. Some kind of red animal.
Yeah. And just, I mean, they said, Red Hawk was in there. And I was like, nah, get off.
There's
That's
a lot
our
of bird
corner.
teams. Yeah.
Yeah. We're the Hawk team.
We're the Hawk team. There's the Falcons and Cardinals and Ravens.
Which are, none of them
They're
are
the more
Hawks.
Inferior bird teams, but, there's enough of them.
Right. Yeah. But in an actual bird battle, I might take a raven out of all those.
Over an osprey?
A hawk, a falcon. Yeah. Over an osprey, a falcon, a cardinal, or an eagle.
I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah. Do we need to have some kind of bird battle royale?
I think it's painfully obvious that the raven is the one you don't want to screw with. They are cunning, dude. They remember stuff. Like there's studies where
are they the raptors of bird the bird kingdom?
No, they're wicked smart. So like there's studies where they've taken researchers out into the field.
And I mean raptors as in velociraptors.
Right. Yeah, a little bit. And that basically a couple of the researchers who were catfish to the Ravens, like when they came back like 5 years later, not only did the Ravens that they had tagged that they were catfish to like be like really aggressive towards them, but they had told their buddies, and all their buddies were aggressive towards
See these guys?
them. Yeah, remember that catfish that I told you about?
That's
like,
him.
He just slammed me down and tagged me. Like she was nice, man. Like she petted my head and told me it was okay and was gentle. Nah, that Paul was a catfish. Like we're all going after Paul. I've been in a battle with a raven that had babies in a nest above my house in Missoula. And that was a nightmare, dude. It was scary. I get dive bombed every day and yell at me. Ravens are terrifying.
This is personal.
There's ravens that will have figured out the patterns to traffic lights so they know when to hop out into the street and eat the roadkill. And then when the light turns green, they fly off before the cars even go. And you're telling me a cardinal's going to stand a chance?
Now I know, when I've told you in the past that the Ravens are kind of an AFC team favorite for me. This is why that you're against this decision of mine. You just don't like all Ravens.
I don't like the city of Baltimore. I can't stand most of the people that they've had on their team. Like they're big stars. Ray Lewis drives me nuts. Shannon Sharp drove me nuts. They even brought Dion in late.
Yeah.
Just guys that I just don't care for.
Okay.
And so I've never really liked that team at all. And when they had those rivals,
Ed Reed, they got Ed Reed, they got Lamar Jackson now. They had Justin Forsett for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, Ed Reed is a highly respectable guy. There's no doubt about that.
I don't know. When I think of that Ravens defense, he was the guy. I was always a big Ed Reed fan.
Yeah, well, rightfully so. That's fine. But the rest of the franchise, they can go kick rocks.
Well, some people we don't want kicking rocks or dive bombing us from above. It's our members of the flock. You can go to getintheflock.com. $3 and above gets you into our Discord community, and $12 and above gets you into our Facebook Ring of Honor. $5 and above gets you your little flocker patch. It's the end of the season. I'm going to start getting around to those of you who've gotten the flock this year and are waiting on those in the mail. So yeah, I've got some work to do now that it's the end of the season.
Absolutely. And y'all have some work to do too, because this is the time when it is painful for us to do this every week and find the time to come up with good content for you here. So again, it's the value for value thing. This is big value is all I'm saying. And we're starting to do videos too. Come on now.
We're providing the value. If you see value in this show as well, you can go to getintheflock.com. You can join our executive producers, DCH, Dustin Mock, and Brian Shaw. Excellent group there. Always supporting the show.
No, absolutely. And I do love all the little flockers that are already in the flock.
Yes, like Chris Babin, who gave us a raise. Well, a raise from providing monthly support at $5 to annual support at $60 for the year. So it's just another way to help us out. If you want to do an annual pledge, if you want to do it monthly, it's totally up to you. And a big thanks to Chris for making that annual and having it come in January and February. Those are the kinds of months to where if you renew your annual membership in those months, it helps us get through some of the tougher times of the off season.
100%. And you think as like a kind of a prepper that, I'd have laid a bunch back, during the fat times. And then
I don't know.
No, we burned through that. Catfish! Come on.
So thanks to Chris, and thanks to anybody else who considering getting in here as we roll through this off season. Yeah. Thanks to Richard Sherman to providing us some content for this show. And yeah, we'll be probably previewing that Super Bowl matchup next week, I suppose. And if there's anything else that you want us to talk about, you can always email us, gohawks@seahawkerspodcast.com.
How grass grows, how paint dries, why the sky is blue. I mean, literally just about anything but that game.
Hopefully we're talking about how Russell Wilson threw for 300 yards in the Pro Bowl just in the fourth quarter alone and, brought the NFC on a 21-point comeback over the AFC, and just that would be memorable.
I hope we see precisely 30 seconds of Russell Wilson on the field at the Pro Bowl.
That's it?
And that's it. Yep.
We'll see more than that.
Way good with that.
We'll see more than that.
No. Yep.
He's fine. They barely play two-hand touch anymore in the Pro Bowl.
I get it. But, you have
to listen to... You know what you have to do, though? Listen to the radio version of the Pro Bowl, because then you picture real football in your mind.
Oh.
And it's kind of fun. But then also, like, when you hear, like, oh, so-and-so sacked for 5 yards... And, you have that in your mind that, oh, man, our dude could have gotten hurt because they're sacking the quarterback. But then you go and you watch the video and it's just like they gave him a little hug and they called him down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you don't want to see that. But you have, that's why just listening to the audio is much better. It sounds like real football.
Dude, there you go. Life hack from Brandon Schultz right there for the Pro Bowl. That's good. That's good information, man. It's a great suggestion.
I have to throw in my pro tips where I can.
Yeah.
Well, someone who's not happy with my pro tips, we got some reviews this week. We got one good one, one bad one.
Oh, bad one first. Yeah.
Bad one first?
Yeah.
Okay. This one titled Clowns. 1 star.
Oh, okay.
This is the most laughably stupid podcast about the Seahawks possible. You got one guy that screams and yells about everything, probably me. The other guy who's drier than sandpaper, Adam. You'll get zero analysis, nothing about schemes, X's and O's. All you get are a couple of clown homers giving nothing objective or critical. Real Hawk Talk is a far, far better podcast. Username, Niners Forever 16.
Hey, fair enough. I have a feeling.
That's a weird username for a Seahawks fan to have.
I have a feeling He didn't enjoy our perception of the Niners, their fan base, their organization, their city, their Bay Area, all of it. I'm guessing.
You think maybe that person took
from
it a little personally?
And rightfully freaking so. Niners forever, loser, clown show guy.
The other review titled, "Great, 5 stars. It's great. Whatever. B-Skilla 22.
Dude, I love it. Yeah, exactly. Why mince words?
If there's
Just
one
great,
thing,
whatever.
if there's one thing, Adam, that I want to strive for, it's for 1-star reviews from NFC West rivals and 5-star reviews from real Seahawks fans. I think that's the sweet spot that we're really trying to hit.
So what I'm hearing here is that you feel like we're
catfish
nailing it right now.
We are nailing it. I mean,
I love it.
If Rams fans, if Niners fans, or Cardinals fans are coming here thinking that they're going to get objective analysis about their team, that's pretty funny.
It's kind of a you problem at that point, I think.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't think that we're all that homering. We get killed all the time for calling out guys and being too critical and things of that nature. So
we could. What you're saying is we could be more homerish.
Oh, by a lot.
Yeah.
And not only that, but check the track record, bud. Like over the years, I mean, between Brandon and I mean, we're 80% right.
Yeah, it's weird too. Well, I guess if you just tuned into one episode, if we were previewing the Rams and Niners and expecting us to get into schemes, X's and O's, yeah, we probably didn't do it for that show.
No, probably not. And on top of all of that, has either one of us come out and claim to be a Brett Coleman, like or a Sam's Film Room?
No,
like we're not X's and O's guys per se. Like we understand schemes to a degree and all that stuff, you know, as high level as maybe just a regular fan guy. We're a fan podcast, broseph.
Yeah, go check out Matty Brown's Seahawks podcast if you want X's and O's.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want dry as sandpaper, not that Matty's dry, but just overall the X's and O's scheme stuff, to me, good Lord. Like sometimes
he's a Niners fan, so he's gotten spoiled by Oscar because he's not, they're not all that dry. And they do the X's and O's stuff on the better rivals.
I would say even the best guys at it, to me, a lot of times, like again, Coleman, I'll watch his stuff.
Oh yeah.
And they're usually about 15-minute videos.
Right.
After about 3 minutes, when I get the gist of what he's talking about, I'm kind of done. I can't sit and like rewind the same play for another 5 times and watch a seal block on the tight end and like okay.
Yeah, Baldinger has it down. He gives you about a minute and a half of one play, and it's probably the sweet spot.
My attention span's short. Like that's just how it is. And I'm not drawing up plays either.
So there it is. That's our reviews. I don't think we got any emails this week. So if you want to leave an email for us for next week, go Hawks at Seahawkerspodcast.com. Sometimes we'll pull the questions from the Ring of Honor too, or from the Discord. So
and again, if you can't get in the flock, if it's just financially right now, which I totally understand. I mean, inflation, Corona, like everything under the sun that has made it really difficult to afford things. If you can't really donate to the show, then, go in, write a review, make fun of Niners fans. Go ahead and share the hell out of this. We got to spread the word, the good word.
Give us some topics. I know we did get some feedback from the last show as we were going over draft picks. I think people want to hear some more analysis of draft by draft. So I don't know if I want to.
As much as you fought the idea of just going boom, 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 and listening to draft picks, as much as you fought that, it turns out people would have liked to have heard that.
Okay, well, you know what? Maybe we can go a couple years
year by year
through and do it that way. I don't want to have a full hour of going draft by draft. I think that's too much for me. And so if it's too much for me, it might be too much for a listener.
Okay. I wanted to take about 4 minutes on each year. It would have been really fast.
Maybe we needed to have a production meeting before we did the show then, and rather than having it while we were discussing it.
Dude, were you talking to Clinton again? Because he keeps trying to plan me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to tell him. I've said Adam doesn't do the planning thing. If you want to, we can plan a little.
Very well. I don't do it very well. I do some, but He's probably right. I probably need a little more planning in my life. But I'm a fan of the Joker's ideology when it comes to planners and how you can't trust them. You know?
Okay. How's that go?
He's in the hospital room with the guy who becomes Harvey Two-Face, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's talking about how he used to be a planner. Like all those other guys. Now look at their plan now. And they can't get anything right. See, I'm like a dog. I see a car and I have to chase it.
It's not a bad Joker.
That's about as good as that gets for me. Yeah.
All right. On to do better and better at life.
All right, man. So my do better this week, Brandon, are for the one and only rich catfish of Dubai. And you would say, why would you call them the one and only? Because that's the name of their stupid company. One and only. You know what one and only does, Brandon?
I have no idea.
They build not just luxury resorts, ultra luxury resorts all over the world. They started doing this about 2 years ago. This is for the Richie Rich of the Richie Riches, like the one.
Oh, is this where Brady's moving into down near Miami?
So they've got a few different resorts. No, not near Miami, but they've got a few around the world.
Okay.
And they always go to the most beautiful, breathtaking places, and they bring in all these rich catfish holes to catfish the whole thing up. Okay. That's what the one and only catfish from Dubai do. Guess where they're opening their very first one and only resort in the United States? Take a guess.
Montana.
Yeah, get the catfish out. We don't need you. See you later. All you and your Richie Rich friends who are all going to be in the ditch the second it frickin' snows and I'm pulling you out right and left. Stay the catfish away. We don't want you. The reason why this place is awesome and beautiful is because we have none of y'all. Stay the hell away. We don't need any more of your kind driving up the prices so that all of us can't live here like we have for freaking generations. Take your money, take your here's an example of their freaking houses. The smallest house you can buy, and they're 92 homes spread up near Big Sky by Moonlight Basin.
See, I was going to ask you where it was. I knew that I figured it had to be by Big Sky, but that's already where they all are.
Oh, I know. We don't need any more. Their smallest one is 3,500 square feet.
Uh-huh.
That's a catfishing McMansion for their micro-sized one. Then you go up there. And the excess that these people have, like up at Big Sky in the resort there.
Right.
Jared used to work up there and do custom fabricating. Mm-hmm. To give you an example of how ridiculous these people are, most of them, when they come up to Montana, they can't handle the altitude. So they have oxygen pumped into their freaking house so that they have the same oxygen levels as if they're at sea level. And they're so catfishing wasteful that when they're there for their 3 days a year, you know how long they pump that oxygen in? For the rest of the freaking year when there's nobody there.
Wow.
It's the excess and the ridiculousness of it is ridiculous. We need no more of that crap here in Montana. One and only, get the catfish out and do better.
See, when we rail on, I think you're talking about a level of rich that most of us can't even really imagine. When you have the kind of money to have a 3,000 square foot place that you only spend a couple weeks out of the year at
best.
But the good thing is we've managed to consolidate most of this particular group of people in Big Sky. Here's
the thing. This is what I'm terrified of. Give me the elements of Big Sky near Red Lodge. Like what makes that such a great place? It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mountains. There's a nice ski resort.
Right.
There's a quaint little Montana town that feels like hometown USA. It's out in the middle of nowhere.
That's the only one. It's the only one in the state, though.
I certainly hope everybody thinks that that's the case.
It's the only place you can find that kind of stuff in our state.
I can think of one other that I may live very close to that I don't need any of this.
No, not here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my do better this week, it is for Scott Zolak of the New England Patriots. He calls the games, and this was the guy. This last week leading the charge for an uproar among Patriots fans about Tom Brady's statement leaving the Bucs.
on the day that he retires from the sport that gave him life, that gave him football, that gave him his opportunities to even have the ability to start his next 3 companies that he mentions in his final part of the statement. Now, I go back to the statement, I read it this morning, the one that he released when he left New England, where he did thank all those New England people. He's either one cold calculating son of a bitch to where you can release that and say, that's it. That part of my life is done. This is my new venture. And it was Tampa Bay. And now I'm just going to thank those. I already did New England. Now I'm doing you. If he did that on the day that he just retires from football, he's the greatest player to ever play the game. We know what the legacy is. You won 6 here. You bookended dynasties, 3 in the front, 3 at the end. And then you walked. And there was times in between there. Whatever it was, back and forth. But this would be a massive FU to the fans, to RKK, to anybody that helped develop him to be the maniacal nut job of a player that he is now and competitor.
22 years in the NFL, 20 with the Patriots, 2 with the Bucks, and the retirement announcement's all about the Bucks.
It's stunning. If that's it, and there's no other part 2 to drop here, it's either bleep you, New England. And by the way, the picture that he chose to post is him in a Bucks uniform as the rain's coming down. He's pointing to the sideline, and the game's at Gillette Stadium. That's Gillette Stadium in the background. So that's where it's another twist. It's a massive bleep you if there isn't anything else coming.
Talk about a massive bleep you. A massive bleep you from Scott freaking Zolak. Where is the respect for a guy who brought you 20 years of greatness to New England? And you can't even wait for a couple hours after his statement of retiring from football. He retired from Tampa, so that's where his retirement statement addressed. And then, lo and behold, he lets that go out for a couple hours to let that sit for a little bit. And then, hey, what do you know? Tom's going back to retire as a member of the Patriots. And now you get all of the thanks that go along with that. All you had to do was wait a couple of hours. And, it shows his picture of him in a Bucks uniform at Gillette. Oh, what a jerk move by our former quarterback. Give me a break. Scott Zolak and your co-host who chimed in there too, do better.
Yeah, this guy, I've heard him say a lot of outlandish things, and he's always so off the mark with his takes. Like, they're just so ridiculous. And yeah, I mean, just chill out for half a second, Broseph.
I heard those statements parroted among a ton of New England fans that, how disrespectful of Tom to not even address the Patriots fans in his retirement announcement. Yeah, like Zolak said, he addressed you when he left you a couple years ago. And you know what? He addressed it again if he just would have waited a couple hours.
Exactly. Just have some patience. And on top of all that, just wait for the Hall of Fame ceremony, bud. Like, you're going to get more than enough Patriots glory thrown your way.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that there was that much entitlement. You know, Tom Brady's ours, Bucks fans. Don't you go thinking that because he won one Super Bowl with you, that erases everything that we had with Tom. It was wild.
Yeah, just unbelievable.
On to Better at Life.
All right, man. My Better at Life this week is for a Montana man named Mike Stevenson and an owl. The two of them together. So Mike Stevenson is a man. He's in his 50s. He's an avid outdoorsman. Spends a lot of times out in the woods. Hunts and traps in an area up in the mountains and is there quite a bit. The previous year, he had been out hunting at that camp, and this owl came to their camp and hung out with them. And basically, his theory was maybe they attracted a few more mice by being there, made for good mouse hunting, and the owl was good to go, right? He had extra mice to eat.
Right.
And so kind of, sort of befriended this owl while they were there. Well, next year he's up there here this last winter, and he's out there checking some trap lines, gets snowshoeing out, and a blizzard sets in while he's out in the middle of the wilderness. And it's dark is you can't see your nose in front of your face, just totally lost with his snowshoes, starting to lose his strength, and sits down in the snow and thinks he's about to start falling asleep and succumb to hypothermia when he hears a hoot out in the distance.
Oh.
And so he wondered, he's like, well, is that my owl buddy? Like, it can't be, but I got nothing else. I can't see where I'm going. So he follows the hoot.
Yeah.
And about every 10 minutes, hoot, you'd hear it again, off in the distance in a little different direction. He followed it for about an hour and just exhausted. When he heard the last hoot, he was walking and he ran smack dab into his wood pile at his camp.
Wow.
Because he couldn't see. The owl led him back to his freaking camp.
That is wild.
That is wild. And he finally, got his flashlight out when he was there and looked for the owl. Couldn't find him, but they're good buddies, obviously. To the owl who saved his life. That's what being a real Montanan's all about right there. Being out in the elements, trusting nature, being a part of nature. Mike Stevenson and the owl better at life than Skip Bayless.
I mean, the owl is definitely better at life than Skip Bayless. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, they formed a connection.
I'm just saying that's a really cool thing. Like the owl could have just been like, you know what, I'm going mice hunting. This guy, good luck. But no, he found his calling, and it's like he's like the Lassie of owls.
Absolutely, yeah.
Except he didn't have to go find help; he did the work himself, or she.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. No, they just made it work, saving lives out there in the wilderness.
Well, I'm giving my better at life this week to the man himself, Richard Sherman. We had a big discussion about him this week, and yes, okay, he said some things that the fans probably didn't care to hear. But the great thing about Sherm is that he's always going to give us something to talk about. And he's probably right more than he's wrong. And, plus most of his impressions from Seahawks fans, that we talked about it, it's probably from social media. So I don't blame him. That's just where he gets his news. But, one of the things that he said was about how he left Seattle. And you know what? I kind of, we talked about it before. We had Sherman's back with how he ended up leaving Seattle. And if he is harboring some of this, I don't know, animosity toward fans, I heard it. I heard where this comes from when he was talking to Cliff Avril about fans getting on him for, quote unquote, leaving Seattle.
They're like, I can't believe you signed to San Francisco. I can't believe you left. I didn't leave. I got fired.
Straight up.
I'm
going somebody that want me.
I'm going to somebody that want me. Y'all fired me, and not only did you fire me, you couldn't even do me the jest of letting me rehab all the way. Like, let me get healthy. You cut me healthy, and we shake hands and part ways. We cool. Yeah. But to cut somebody in the middle of Achilles rehab, you don't do that to your enemies.
So yes, I have some empathy for Sherman with that regard. He shouldn't have been let go the way he did. But the fact, I think that he's still good with a lot of us, and you can even hear it. The fact that he's, giving us stuff to talk about in the offseason, that's good enough for me. Richard Sherman, better at life than Skip Bayless.
Considering it, the whole segment revolves around his statement, I think that makes perfect sense. And then on top of all of that, I am, unlike Scott Zolak, I am looking forward to the day that Sherman retires as a Seahawk, and I'll be appreciative of that.
I will too. And with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.